A long time ago, on a dark night, a caravan stayed at an inn in the desert. The caravan had 100 camels, and the merchants tied the camels with ropes and pegs. However, they found that one camel was not securely tied because they were missing a rope and a peg. It was already midnight, and all the shops were closed, so there was no way to get a rope or peg at that hour. They went to the innkeeper, woke him up, and asked if he could lend them a peg and a rope, because they had lost one. The innkeeper opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I don't have a peg or rope, but you can do this. Pretend you have a peg and rope, dig a hole in the ground, insert the non-existent peg, and hit the ground with a hammer. Then pretend to tie the rope around the camel's neck and tell it to sleep. It's just an animal. Even humans can be deceived." Although the merchants were skeptical of the innkeeper, they had no other options, so they did as he suggested. They dug a hole, inserted the non-existent peg, and hit the ground with a hammer. Then they pretended to untee the non-existent rope and pretended to tie it around the camel's neck. Surprisingly, when the camel heard the sounds of digging and hammering, it sat down and went to sleep as usual. They were confused, but eventually went to sleep as well. The next morning, the merchants woke up early because the caravan had to depart in the morning. They untied the ropes of the other 99 camels and removed the pegs, and all the other camels stood up. However, the 100th camel, which was not actually tied, did not get up. They pushed and tried various ways to make it stand up, but it remained motionless. They were surprised because it was understandable in the darkness of the previous night, but even in the bright sunlight, the camel still wouldn't stand up. They went back to the innkeeper, wanting to know how he had cast a spell on the camel to make it refuse to stand up. The old man simply asked, "Did you untie the peg and rope?" But the merchant said, "There was no peg or rope on that camel." The old man laughed and said, "Do as you did last night. Pretend to remove the peg and untie the rope." The merchants, helpless, went back and made some noises, as if they were removing the peg, and pretended to untie the non-existent rope. Surprisingly, when the camel heard the sounds of digging and untying, it suddenly stood up, ready to go. Morale: people are often bound by fictitious limitations and the doubts of others.